Hi everyone, and thank you for being here. Today we're going to challenge a common view on what it takes to build a truly thriving team, especially when things are going maybe already not as smoothly as you were hoping them to. And Kintsugi principles will help us with it. It will help us not just to fix broken teams, but actually to even regain the new and greater value from them. So before we begin, a couple of things about me. I'm a senior product owner, and currently I work in one of the biggest banks globally. So I have background in systems analysis and maybe just a little small bias for data and making things done. So throughout my career, which lasts already over 10 years, almost 5 years of them being in financial technologies, I noticed that no matter how great is the team, no matter how skilled are individuals in the given team, when this system, like a human, a social system, is under pressure for just a bit too long, there is a real risk that this team can break eventually. So, and when things break, we tend to replace them altogether. But sometimes it's not possible and definitely not the right thing to do. So that's where Kintsugi comes into play. So please raise your hands, those of you who ever heard this word, like Kintsugi. Okay, I see a few hands. That's great. Then we're starting maybe not exactly from scratch, but for many of you, it's still new. So basically, as the story goes, there was an ancient Japanese military ruler with the name I could not possibly pronounce. And so he once sent one of his tea bowls back to China to be repaired because it broke. And when it got back his tea bowl, he was disappointed with the end result. So what he did, he asked one of his local craftsmen to come with more aesthetically pleasing way to fix this tea bowl, and the solution that they came up with was not to try and hide the cracks, but instead to highlight them with gold. And that's how Kintsugi as an art form was born. And literally this word means golden joinery. So over centuries, Kintsugi gained popularity across the world. It became so famous that it influenced actually not just pottery, but apparently different broader philosophies, including agile approaches, including team approaches. And definitely, I'm not the first person to stumble upon this craft and think, oh great, it will make a perfect metaphor for the challenges that we face at work and how we can tackle them. But what's interesting is that the most common way to use Kintsugi as a mindset to fixing broken processes and teams is normally to focus on the flaws and saying, okay, these are actually not the flaws, they are our biggest assets. To the point when we start thinking, oh, these are not flaws at all. But what if we challenge this concept? So we could probably make a whole different sessions on what leads to broken teams, why teams break, and yeah, just in the interest of time, let me just say that there will be signs. No team breaks overnight. At the point when you start noticing signs like repeatedly missed deadlines, not once, not twice, but when it becomes a pattern, or when you notice the lowered team morale, like significantly lower for quite a long time, or for instance, it comes to a surprisingly high turnover, then probably it's already too late, probably there are already some cracks or something is about to be broken. Now, when faced with such situation, people who already heard of Kintsugi as a framework or as a mindset for fixing broken stuff, they start to look for so-called golden glue, for maybe an ideal solution or a perfect tool. And I think most of us are like experienced enough to have an idea that, okay, maybe there's no perfect solution, yeah, but maybe, just maybe, there's this secret ingredient that which we use it, if we use it, then whatever framework we choose for fixing, it will guarantee us success, or at least significantly raise our chances. The question is, what is this secret ingredient? Is it communication? Because we hear a lot of talks around communication, empathetic one, to the point it almost becomes a buzzword. Is it empathy itself, or is it trust? Because no good communication is possible without trust. So I saw this article recently which went like, about Kintsugi again, which went like, unleash the golden elixir. Your gold is empathetic communication, and use it to mend the pieces together, and so on and so on. Smart, right? But what if I tell you there is no golden glue? Well, there is no, and there never was. Kintsugi as a craft, which we use as a metaphor, it never offered an easy solution and a quick fix. What it offers instead, though, and what we still can explore, is the hard trade-offs. And to understand how it works and how we can use it and apply, we need to dive in just a bit deeper into how it's done. So there are two types of Kintsugi. The traditional one, which uses sap of lacquer tree to create this glue-like substance to keep the pieces together, and all the natural ingredients. And because these ingredients are natural, it is completely food safe, which means that the repaired item can serve its original purpose after fixed. And then it makes a critical and key difference to the modern Kintsugi, which uses synthetic glue, and sometimes, even when with prolonged exposure, it can even be toxic. Now, does it mean that traditional is obviously better than the modern one? Surprise, no. Not necessarily, at least. It only means that in each situation, one must think about the inevitable trade-offs that come with every decision, especially when that's the decision on a scale, like in which direction we go team-wise, structure-wise, assignment-wise, and so forth. Let me give you a real-life example. So imagine that in your organization you recently had quite a shake-up, and that resulted in a high, and by that I mean really high, turnover in your team. I won't be saying the exact numbers, just think of a number that would be significant enough for your department or for your team. Now, the modern Kintsugi-like approach to address that would be to instantly try and replace all the quitters, all the leavers, and what's more, to outsource this process as much as possible so that the team leads, they are not bothered with the hiring process, and so they are meeting the new hires only after the offer was made. Is it quick? Obviously, that's pretty fast. But is it quote-unquote food safe? Can we go on like this with the team which was formed like this for another several years and bring amazing products? So those of you who are familiar with this concept of 4 stages of team development would know that actually it's probably a questionable decision in the long run, because we're talking about not 1 or not 2 levers here, and consequently the new hires within the pretty short time frame. We're talking about multiple ones. And what it brings us is that the team will be probably stuck in between forming, storming, and norming stage for quite a while, but never reaching the performing. So the traditional Kintsugi-like approach here, on the other hand, would be the one which would acknowledge the root causes and which would try to address the root causes in the first place. So not by trying to replacing the livers as soon as possible, but conducting the high quality exit interviews, and also not just, listening to people say to you, or most importantly, not say to you at those interviews, but actually action the feedback received. Now you see that both these approaches of traditional and modern like Kintsugi, they have their own trade-offs, which means neither of them is perfect and like a silver bullet that will instantly help you. But what's important is to make the decision consciously and agree to the inevitable trade-offs. Now, we've just spoke about the two types of Kintsugi, the two philosophies behind them, and how you can apply each depending on the long-term goals and depending on the tactical goals of your organization. Moving on, we'll look at the process of Kintsugi itself. So, regardless, if we are speaking traditional or modern, it includes the critical step of preparation. The surface preparation, which means that each little piece of the broken vase, or in our case of the broken team, has to be treated individually with patience and care. And if we transfer this from the art form as a concept to working with broken teams, we can think of another example. Let's say you'd want to introduce such thing as a pair programming in your team. It's a good thing, right? But you, for example, wouldn't get an immediate buy-in. And we can guess that for such initiative as pair programming, a buy-in from everybody involved is crucial. So instead of just enforcing this decision and watching it fail, what you want to do is to address the concerns that individuals might have. Somebody would face this initiative with enthusiasm, and others, well, they would be considerate. There is a study that shows that pretty much whatever the engineers would tell you when backing from this decision, like, oh, it's too time consuming or whatever, in most cases, it's just the tip of the iceberg that hides the maybe a slightly fear of being exposed, even if there's nothing to be exposed of, like the ways we work, the amount of Googling we do throughout the process, and so forth. But the point here is that we need to address this, and it means investing time and investing a certain level of empathy. Now, also the process of Kintsugi takes weeks, and it's quite monotonous. And also during this art, the smell is funny, and you also see this person even wearing gloves, which means that they don't want probably to damage their skin. And it brings us to another dead simple conclusion, that when we attempt to bring massive changes, we should be ready for the things to get messy. Now at this point you might ask, okay, but where is the golden glue? I definitely saw that in the pictures in the beginning, and you'd be absolutely right. So at the very last step of Kintsugi process comes the golden dust. So it's like only the golden powder. What it means for us in the perspective from transferring it to working with teams. Think of cameras that would be voluntarily, and that's important, voluntarily switched on pretty much every day during every meeting. So that's the consequence that everybody's comfortable doing so. It's not the reason. Then think maybe about regular, high-attended and fun team meetings. Why not? Think about such fundamental thing as public recognition. So we all need that. And as a manager or as a dev lead, you want to highlight these things, you want to enforce and promote them. But the thing is that without underlying repair work, it will be useless. Now, the trick is to be able to tell one from another and choose right tool for the purpose. Now, we're coming towards the end of the session, and let's do a quick recap. As we just dived into the history and the actual technology about this popular metaphor of Kintsugi, we realized that the actual strength of teams and processes comes not from the cheesy rituals or the shiny surfaces. It actually comes from the unseen work behind the scenes. It comes from the difficult conversations that you will hate, comes from patient mentoring, and the quiet acts of leadership when you help keeping things together when no one's watching. The next thing is quite a paradox, but is something beautiful. So the cracks, as we call them in our teams and processes, the flaws, they really are the points of improvement and growth. But the thing is that the value is only gained after these points have been addressed, again, with skill, patience, and care. Finally, we have acknowledged that sometimes what keeps the team together, at least for the short run, can be something not really healthy, can even be toxic. And while this is an uncomfortable reality, can be, still we have to admit that in certain situations, what we call quote-unquote modern glue, things like top-down decisions or tactical fixes, they still have its own value, and they can help sustain the system and address the critical for a short time while before it falls apart. So you can buy yourself some time before you apply the actual long-term strategic powerful changes. So yeah, and the key is to know and understand the trade-offs when we build with patience and care and when we protect just quickly what matters most. Finally, thriving teams are not built by avoiding the cracks or just relabeling them as features, because, well, honestly, they're not. But instead of avoiding them and addressing, we want to mend them with intention, clarity, and courage to build something resilient in the long run. Thank you.